Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for taking an hour out of your morning to join Oasis and Concur as we're going to inform you about how to increase visibility and automation into your expense and time reporting. Here at Oasis Solutions, we partner with some of the best-in-breed software applications on the marketplace today to help our clients automate and boost efficiencies across their businesses. Today, we're going to be joined by Concur, and I wanted to give a quick overview about Oasis for those of you that don't know us. Some of you may be longtime clients, and we appreciate your business, but in case this is your first time learning a little bit more about Oasis, I'm Aaron Rosenberg. I'm the Senior Vice President of Business Development and Partner here at Oasis Solutions, and we've been helping clients in the community and around the nation over the last 26 years focus on their people and process and get the most out of their software investments. We have a presence here in our headquarters in Louisville, Kentucky, where I'm speaking to you today from, but we work with clients around the Southeast and Midwest and actually all around the country. We have over 700 clients in over 35 states across the United States. And our mantra is really the people and processes behind the software. Software is a great tool, but it's just that. It's a tool to help boost efficiencies and make your people and process more efficient for your business. We also believe in who you buy from is often more important than what you buy. So as great as the software is today that we're going to be looking at, you need good partners like we have with Concur and like you would have with Oasis to help you get to the finish line and complete a successful project. We're proud to have a diverse staff of very talented, experienced individuals who have worked on the other side of the implementation table as well. So these individuals understand that this project is just one extra thing that's going to be on your plate. So we want to make it as streamlined and efficient as possible so that you can get the results that you are expected to in a shorter time to value. We have over 200 years of combined experience across our project managers. But the focus of today's webinar is going to be on our partner, Concur. We have a lot of choices in the marketplace, just like our clients do, and we chose Concur to be a partner for our clients on time and expense management. I'm really happy to have John Parisi join us this morning, as well as Sean Martin. John's going to lead off. He's the Senior Manager of Business Development at Concur and a great friend of Oasis. John, I'm going to let you take it over.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Hey, thank you everyone for joining us today. Appreciate it. Like Aaron was stating earlier, covering out some time on a Wednesday morning. Real quick, what I'd like to do, maybe for the next 10 minutes or so, is just level set as far as who Concur is and give you a general overview as far as how we look at spend management. So with that said, if you think about Concur, some of you on the phone may be familiar with who Concur is. You may already be clients of ours. You may be using one of our solutions. But just so we can level set as far as who we are, if you look at Concur, we've been around for a little over 20 years now. We really look at the marketplace and the go-to-market and help clients really around spend management. If you think, okay, what is spend management? It's really the way to control the expenditures within inside of your organization. We have about 45 million users on the Concur platform. We're in about 150 different countries. But the really nice thing is that our SMN space, our small business, we have about 17,000 clients in the U.S. alone that are using the Concur solutions, be it our travel and expense solution or our AP invoice solution, which Sean will demonstrate for you in a few minutes. And just what we really want to stress is some people may know of Concur from a previous life or a previous experience. They come from, say, an enterprise organization, and the misconception is, oh, Concur, great product, but it's too big for us. And what I really want to stress is Concur is designed for as small as a few individuals, but it can't scale up all the way to the enterprise space. We have customers that have 4 or 5 individuals using our travel and expense. And we also support the largest organizations in the world, including the U.S. Federal government and the Department of Defense. So just know, no matter what size your organization is, we have a solution that could be custom fit for whatever your needs are. No, it doesn't matter if you have multiple general ledgers that you're managing towards, or if you have different type of travel policies or different type of workflows. Just know we have probably seen it by working with the 35 different 1,000 organizations and companies throughout the world. So just have that assurance that if you have an issue, we probably have seen it. If we haven't, we're up for that challenge and we would love to speak with you. So if you think about as far as managing spend across board, I mean, we end up speaking to a lot of different businesses and individuals like yourself, and they have a lot of different questions. It all revolves around gaining better control over this, type of activity that really doesn't bring true value to the company. It's not mission critical for your basic business functions. And if you think about, spend management itself, be it expense reporting or AP invoices, controlling that spending in your organization, it's more of a distraction and not more of a differentiator for your organization. And what we mean by that is if you think about your AP department, what they're spending a disproportionate amount of their time. And we've done studies as far as speaking to different AP departments. Over 70% of them still say they spend 50% of their time tracking down receipts, invoices from their vendors. Where in the process are those invoices in the organization? Has the sales team submitted an expense receipt so the AP could close the month? So we try to give you the tools and give them the power so they can control the business the way it should be, so the AP and the finance can go on to other more mission critical activities for them. One thing as far as like Aaron was saying, as far as software and as far as technology, technology is great, but you also have to realize, we're still dealing with individuals. So it's not just the technology, because you can have great technology, but if it's not adopted by your organizations, by the sales teams, by the AP staff, you're really not doing a service for the organization. You also got to look at as far as, the workforce, the millennials that are in the workforce or entering the workforce, they're demanding and really are expecting this type of automation. If you were to bring to them that, if you submit an expense report or AP invoices, they're still coming in paper form, they're going to be looking at that type of a company as being not ahead of the curve, but behind the curve. And when you're trying to recruit employees, that's one thing they're going to look for as well. Are you on the very latest platforms, the very latest technologies? So how do we control it all? I mean, the whole idea is we want to move away from the paper receipts, the spreadsheets. People always ask, John, who's your largest competitor within inside the things that we do? And honestly, it's the Excel spreadsheets. There are so many organizations still today, be it enterprise, large market companies, mid-market, or even small business. They're still doing these type of activities via spreadsheets. So we really want to take all of that and automate it, be it your invoices, your procurement side, and have that all tied into the accounting system, be it Sage or NetSuite, along with the help that you would gain from Oasis solutions. So if you think about as far as spending in an organization, it's honestly is happening everywhere. You have salespeople that are going out there spending on behalf of the company. and you think about spend, it's a massive budget line item that has really a big impact on a company's P&L. It could be either positive or negative, but just realize that spend is happening everywhere. And like, most companies and most businesses, getting your arms around it and, where is it happening, when and how is that money being spent? It's nearly impossible at times. You really can't see it because the processes that you may have in place are just not adequate for the information that you need. The bottom line is, it shouldn't come a shock to you either, but we found that a vast majority of organizations are, they're making these important spend decisions without the information at hand. In fact, most businesses have spend data, everywhere except where it should be. It's coming in from all these different directions inside their organization. It's coming in from finance, it's coming to HR, it's coming in from legal. And the whole idea behind it is, the different organizations, what they're really concerned with is, paying the employees on time. And with finance and for the C-levels, it revolves around compliance. Are we in compliance not only with the company's travel or spend policies, but are we in compliance with as far as the different regulations that may be in place? So if you look as far as, spend in general in organizations, Concur can help with about 65% of it. If you look at the total spend within organizations, 35% of it is on the human side or in terms of payroll. We can help with everything else. If you look at the remaining 65%, 10% of it is travel and expense, people jumping on planes, booking hotel rooms, booking car rentals. We can help with that. But the big portion of it is the rest of the spend. You have different vendors, you have services that are being provided to your company. We can help manage that spend, make sure that we're taking advantage of early payment discounts, making sure we could extend the cash that we're holding on to so we can improve cash flow. So we do this all on one platform as far as Concur. So what's really nice is it's not separate, with the exclusion of the payroll side that we don't handle. We could handle and support you on our travel and expense and also our invoice, all on one platform. So you can have a holistic view of your total spend and have greater control over it. And the way we do that is by tying everything together. So think about Concur more than just a particular individual solution such as travel and expense, but we look at also wrapping it around a platform. So we are able to assess, risk and compliance. How should you spend? What's the optimization around the spend management? We have industry solutions specifically around, say, healthcare or manufacturing, tax compliance. And we wrap this platform not only with just Concur, but we have a complete entire ecosystem that is wrapping themselves around the Concur platform. For example, travel experiences. We have all the major hotels, car rentals, airlines, Uber. They're all writing to the Concur platform with the ultimate goal being having that expense report basically write themselves. For example, when you jump in an Uber car, if you have your Uber account tied to your Concur, all you have to do when you jump out of your Uber ride, that Uber receipt will flow directly into your Concur expense without you having to interact with it at all. We have tax management with Avalara, with Thomson Reuters for sales tax as it ties into our AP invoice products. We have integrations into ERP solutions. We're very agnostic as far as on the ERP side, but have very tight solutions for NetSuite and the Sage solutions, be it their Sage 100, 300 ERPs, or even their industry-specific solutions for construction and real estate. So real quick before I hand it off to Sean, who will jump into the product, if there's anything we want you to walk away with today is knowing that there's 3 core solutions within the Concur platform. We have our Concur Travel. It's really the easiest way to book travel online, but also on your mobile device. So just imagine you're at an airport and there's a delay. Instead of you having to run to that counter along with the other 200 folks, you jump on your mobile device, look at any of the available flights that may be available to you to get you to your destination, and you go rebook while you're walking to that new concourse in the airport. Our second solution is our expense. What we found is we were the first company to tie those 2 together, travel and expense. It was an easy marriage between those two solutions, because if you look at what are people spending, what are on expense reports, a vast majority of it is travel related. You know, car rentals, going out to the restaurants, going out for meals. So it's a logical sense to marry those 2 solutions or those 2 experiences together. What's really nice with our expense solution is you could create it either online, or more likely the way I do when I travel is you do everything on your mobile device. So literally, I no longer have to spend my weekends creating an expense report. I have it done by the time I jump on a plane. The real power, and Sean will show you this as well, it's really not as much the front end, it's really the controls that we build in to the back end. The whole idea is let's control that spend before it occurs. You know, it doesn't do a company any good if they realize that their employees spent $500 on an airline ticket where they could have spent $250. That money has been spent already. Well, if you have a tool such as Concur, you can control that spend before it even incurs. And lastly, by far, our third solution in our core is our AP invoice. We've been doing it for about 12 years now. It really has been taken off for us probably in the last 3 or 4 years. We're seeing about 100%, 180% growth year over year on our AP invoices. And our AP invoices is a way for your organization to control the vendor invoices that are coming into your organization for payment that you need to pay to your vendors. We have things as far as with 3-way matching. We'll go from all the way from the purchase request all the way through the workflow for the approval process, all the way to the back end, and follow it up with payment. And we'll do the payment either through ACH, we could do it by a credit card, or we could do it by check as well. It's a very nice, robust system. We could act as your mailroom if you like. We'll receive your invoices on your behalf. Your vendors would mail them into us. We'll open them up. We would do OCR technology to scan all that information, pull it off of those vendor invoices. At that point, we would send it into your organization for approval. And Sean, with that, I will pass it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, John. Thanks everyone for, again, taking time out of your busy schedule to attend the meeting today. I always think every meeting needs to start with a little humor. What I'm going to cover today is first go through the AP invoice automation service with Concur. Then I'll briefly go into Concur Travel, and then we'll cover the expense reporting, and then the last part of the overview, I will cover the approval process utilizing the mobile device, mobile tools that Concur offers for any of your managers, directors, supervisors that have to either approve expense reports or would have to approve vendor invoices, how they can actually do that on the fly. So, you know, I don't know if anybody's reading any of these, but these are hashtag said no one ever when it comes to starting the invoice process. So hopefully I have control here. There we go. So perfect. So what we'll cover today is Invoice Simplified. Essentially how Concur is able to become your mailroom service. capture vendor invoices, route for approval, and ultimately get those invoices paid and get the data integrated with your existing ERP system. We'll also cover for any of those companies out there today that also have a purchase order system in place, manage inventories, how Concur can work with your existing ERP system to be able to bring in purchase orders, receipt of goods, so that way Concur can actually help with the PO matching process, and ultimately, again, getting those payments made to those vendors in a timely fashion. So with that, to begin the process, how does Concur start in terms of capturing vendor invoices? Well, there's multiple ways that we work with our customers in order to capture vendor invoices. The first is the manual process. Very few of our customers actually do this. This is where you continue to receive in your vendor invoices. You open up Concur, you're going to key in the vendor invoice data into Concur. You're going to scan the invoice, attach it to the record in Concur, and then submit for approval. Very few of our customers actually do that. Most customers are the better solution or the best in class. The better solution is still where our customers decide to continue to manage their own vendor invoices. They bring them in and they either forward them by email to Concur, where we start our process, or you scan the invoice and then you have that invoice forwarded to Concur via email, where then we capture the invoice, we apply OCR technology, and we begin the actual process. However, most of our customers really look to Concur to become their mailroom service. So essentially, we provide our customers with a new PO box, an email address, and a fax number that is distributed to your vendors. Your vendors then begin sending their invoices directly to Concur. We're going to bring in those invoices. We're going to apply the OCR technology against the invoice. We're going to begin the coding process of the invoice based on your business rules. And then based on a number of factors, we'll start the routing process of that vendor invoice as well. So how do we do that? So as John had mentioned in the previous slides, think of Concur is really becoming your spend management platform, essentially everything outside of payroll. So in one platform, Concur is going to offer vendor invoice automation. So what you'll see here within Concur is that once we bring in that vendor invoice, we have applied the OCR technology against the invoice, we have digitized the invoice, and then we've captured a digital image of the invoice. We're now going to grab all that data from that vendor invoice, and we're going to pull it over into Concur. So first, we're going to validate that the vendor is an approved vendor. If it's not, it's going to get flagged. We're going to capture the invoice number, the invoice date, and also begin the assigning of the expense types or the coding process. We'll begin that as well for you based on your business rules. We're also going to capture the total invoice amount. If the PO is listed on the invoice, we're going to bring that over. We're going to separate your tax, your freight, everything comes off that physical copy of the invoice. And then lastly, we're going to bring in that line item data with the description, part numbers, quantity, unit price, and so forth. Lastly, depending on how these vendor invoices are routed, especially for non-PO vendor invoices, there's going to be a number of factors in terms of what we're going to look at to know how to route the invoice. You may have the invoice routed instantly to accounts payable, or you might have the invoice based on your business rules routed to the person who made the purchase of the good or service, as in this example. You may also have a process set up where you have specific individuals that are assigned to the vendor, so we route the invoice to that person who owns that vendor. Or lastly, it could be based on a dollar threshold that the invoice needs to be routed differently because of the invoice dollar threshold. So those are business rules that you actually establish with Concur. So once we actually route the invoice for the approval, and I'll cover this with the actual live mobile app as well, But any individual that has to either review expense reports or vendor invoices, they're going to get a push notification on their mobile device, letting them know that they have a new invoice waiting for their review and their approval. We can also send out a backup email letting the person know that, hey, you have vendor invoices that are awaiting your attention. They're going to see that. They're going to be able to open up their mobile app. They're going to see all the invoices that are waiting for their review and approval. Right from the mobile application, they'll be able to drill into the invoice. They can go into the actual invoice details. They can see the image of the invoice. They can see, the distribution of the invoice. If there's any flags that are on that invoice in terms of any discrepancies, where it could be potentially a duplicate, could be where the age of the invoice is past, what you would accept from a vendor for an invoice. We're going to bring all of that to that approver's attention. That way we're flagging that to make darn sure that duplicate invoices are not getting paid, and you can contact vendors, based on age of invoice and so forth, to have any discrepancies taken care of. Ultimately, the invoices can be approved right from the mobile device, or they can be sent back to have somebody contact the vendor to get any of these exceptions fixed before the invoices are approved for payment. In terms of approval workflows, you can actually structure approval workflows in many different ways. These are just a couple of the basic workflow approvals for a vendor invoice. So you can have it sent to the invoice owner, manager, finance, and then ultimately for payment. It can go from an invoice owner to a manager, a secondary approver, finance or AP for final distribution and payment. And again, invoice owner, manager could go to a limit approver, and this is where I mentioned before, based on the dollar threshold of the invoice, that might have it routed to a secondary approver to review and approve before it goes to accounts payable for final distribution and payment. So for any of those folks out there that have a PO system in place, whether you're currently creating purchase orders and receiving in your existing ERP system, or if you don't have a PO system, but you're actually looking for putting one in place, Concur also supports that as well. So we do offer a tool for purchase requisition that goes through an approval process. Once fully approved, you can generate a PO and email that to the vendor. Again, we're going to do the matching on that purchase rec. For those of you who need to, you can also bring in your PO detail and your receipt of goods detail into Concur. So from your existing ERP system, obviously you're sending your vendor purchase orders. They're sending you the shipment with packing list detail, receiving detail. Concur is going to bring in the vendor invoice from the vendor. We can capture the PO and receipt of goods data from your existing ERP system, and that's where Concur will actually do the three-way matching for you. So we'll match the vendor invoice to the PO and to the receipt of goods for that three-way verification. If everything is a match, it can actually go straight to accounts payable for payment. If it is not a match and there's discrepancies, then it can be routed to manage those exceptions to purchasing to contact the vendor to get anything clarified or fixed. So just to give you an idea of what that actually looks like in Concur, any invoices that are received by an approver, they're going to be notified. We're going to show them the exceptions. As in this case, you can see the exceptions are highlighted. We're going to show you the payment request, the vendor invoice versus that purchase order, so that way you can start doing the side-by-side comparison. There you can see the first line item on the invoice is a match. Everything comes through clean. However, the second line item on this invoice is not a match. And that's where we're going to point out the discrepancy. And then you'll be able to see that discrepancy, and it's based on the unit price. The PO was originally $15. The invoice came in at $13. That's always a good problem to have. With that, we're also going to give you real-time visibility into status of every invoice and where it's at. That's as soon as Concur receives the invoice, you now have complete visibility to the status of the invoice and where it is, not only from getting those invoices approved and paid, but also from a cash flow perspective as well. So we're going to show you, where the invoice actually exists right now, the status of the invoice, and then, of course, we can slice and dice any of this data any which way you would prefer. Once invoices are fully approved, Concur can actually offer a tool called Payment Manager, so we can help you manage those payments to your vendors. We're going to look to optimize the payment of the vendor. We're going to look for early payment discounts. We're always going to base the invoice on vendor terms. And then we can actually initiate the payments of the invoice either via check, ACH, if you do pay vendor invoices with corporate card payments, we can automate that process as well. So that way we'll send your vendor an email letting them know to apply these invoices to the card that they keep on file. That way you can capture, full rebate from that card program. And also we offer what are called virtual card payments. This is a little more of a secure transaction because it's actually a one-time card number that's generated to pay vendor invoices. It's fully automated and fully integrated, and the rebates can actually be anywhere between 1.5% to 1.75%. We also offer a supplier portal. So what this is going to give you the ability to do is your vendors, instead of calling you and taking valuable time away from your back office team, hopefully they can log into the supplier portal and they can actually check on the status of those vendor invoices that they've sent you and cut down on the volume of calls. So with that, that's what I wanted to cover at a very high level from the standpoint of AP vendor invoice. Now we're going to move over into the travel and the expense side of the demonstration. Of course, I'm trying to add a little humor here. Well, I can't hear anybody on the other end, so hopefully there's a couple of chuckles as it relates to your expense reporting process. So with that, let's see if I can now get to my desktop. There we go. All right. So with that, before I actually go into the travel side of Concur, what I thought I'd start with first is the mobile app, because I'd like to show you how we're going to capture expenses on the fly. We're going to make it super simple and super easy for any of your people that are in the field. So I'm going to pull up my mobile device and let's go into Concur. And what I'm going to start with is receipt capture, Expenseit. Expenseit is a single purpose application simply to capture receipts, much like what I just stepped through with a vendor invoice with OCR technology. We're doing the same thing with vendor receipts. So I'm an employee, I'm in the field, whether I ran my corporate credit card for the expense or I paid for an item with out-of-pocket cash, I get the receipt. Now I need to pull out my phone and I'm going to capture a picture of the actual receipt. So there we go. Capture the picture, there it is. I can add a comment, and if the image is actually blurry, it's going to let me know, so I can go ahead and take a new picture. There we go. So if I need to add a comment to help me, remember what this expense was for, I can add that, and then I can simply hit accept. Now what the system is going to do, even though I did try to attach a blurry image, it's going to upload the receipt into Concur automatically, and it's going to create the expense. So with that, let's pop back over into Concur, and let's go through the travel. So what you're going to find in Concur, especially as it relates to travel, is Concur, one of the first things that we're going to try to do is to help you to control spend before spend actually occurs. And travel is one of those places where we can really help an organization save a lot of money. One of the things that we do is we build in an organization's travel policy right into Concur to help guide your employees to booking the most reasonable air, hotel, as well as car. So I'm going to pop into the travel here. Let's go in and let's just say we're going to take a flight from Minneapolis, St. Paul. We're going to go down to Louisville, and let's just say we're going to fly out in October. And let's just say the 11th, we're going to return on the 12th. I need to pick up and drop a car off at the airport. I can automatically reserve the car, and I need to find a hotel. So at this point, I'm going to look for a hotel near the airport, and I want to stay within 10 miles. I'm going to go down, and I'm going to hit search. So what Concur is actually doing right now is we are searching the broadest content of all available air that is out in the market. One of the things that's going to separate Concur from any of the other travel sites that many of you have ever used is we're now going to pull in 100% of the air inventory that's available, because we have all of the direct connect carriers such as Southwest, JetBlue, Air Canada. They're all going to show up in Concur. You know, with many of the sites, Southwest, you know, JetBlue, you have to actually go directly to those sites to book that flight. With Concur, we have 100% participation with all your air carriers. We have 100% with your car rental, and we have about 85% of all your major hotels from the standpoint of travel inventory in Concur. So when we come in here, we can now start searching for the air that we'd like to, you know, book. Right now, I'm looking at all 95 flights. If I only want to see one, you know, nonstop flights, there they are. I only have one available for flying to Kentucky. If I want to look for just one stop, there you can see all the flights where it's one, you know, one stop. Any flights that are outside your travel policy, we're going to reflect that with a flag. So this is helping your employees guide them to selecting the most reasonable airfare. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and let's say we're going to take this nonstop. It's a flagged flight. Well, when I go to try to book it, we're going to pull it up and we're going to actually show the employee your travel policy. At this point, Concur is going to let that employee supervisor, direct manager, know that the employee is doing this. But we want to give the employee some options for why they're doing this. So they can select a reason code, they can put in an explanation, and then down below, we're going to show the manager, the supervisor, all of the other flights that actually are available that fall within your organization's travel policy. So this way you can question the employee, why are you trying to book a $600 flight when there's all these other flights available at 306 through Southwest? So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and save, and we're going to get the flight reserved. We're going to pull up the itinerary. If you have a frequent flyer program, we're going to be able to put that in as well. So right here, I have one for American Airlines, but I don't have one set up for Delta, but you can. That way, Concur becomes a one-stop shop. You don't have to worry about your, you know, rewards programs and all of that, because you'll be able to predefine all of that data into Concur. Otherwise, let's go ahead and, you know, book with the American Express corporate card. And now we're going to go out and reserve the flight, and then we're going to look for a specific car that we'd like to reserve. And now we're pulling up all of the available hotels. So one of the things that we're doing right here in Concur is we can actually narrow down what hotels we want to look for. So I had said within 10 miles of the airport. I'm a big Hilton fan, so I'm going to go out and I'm going to search for Super Chain. We're going to go out for Hilton. Now it's narrowing down the list just for the hotels that are within 10 miles of the airport that are actually part of the Hilton chain. So then we can come in here and we can actually look for potential hotel rooms that we'd like to book. And then, of course, we can zoom in and view all of the different hotel rooms that are available within the Hilton Garden Inn, Louisville downtown. The other thing too that's really convenient from the standpoint of a traveler is if I want to zoom in and actually see what the area looks like, right with the Bing Maps, we can drill right down to the Earth view, so that way we can actually see what the area looks like. And there you go. So at this point, if I were to go ahead and book the room, we could go ahead and select that, but I'm going to skip over that because I actually don't want to book that travel. And let's go over to the expense side. So at this point, we're going to come in and let's say now that we have been on our travel, we're now going to go ahead and create our expense report. So I'm going to create a brand new expense report. I'm going to give it an expense report name. The fields at the top level, of course, they're 100% configurable. You can add fields, you can take away fields, you can include drop-down fields, text fields, but essentially at this header level to help our customers save time, any of the data that I populate at the header level will flow right down to all of the expense lines on your expense report. That way you don't have to do it individually for each one. So at this point, I'm going to pop in here. We're going to select all of the available expenses that I've incurred throughout that trip. We're going to pull them over onto the expense report. Bear with me 1 second while it catches up here. That's why. Sorry, everyone. Bear with me 1 second. There we go. So I've just created the expense report. Now, anything that's outside of your company's expense policy is going to get flagged up here on the top. So we're going to show anything that potentially is out of your company's expense policy. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into this hotel stay. And here you can see with the hotel that there's actually one of the things that we're going to do for hotel bills is we'll auto-itemize the hotel stay. So Concur will actually go and auto-itemize. We're going to separate your room tax, your parking, in-room entertainment, everything gets separated. At this point, we can go in and we can review. I can see here that I did have some in-room entertainment. So I'm going to click on that. And then at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this off as a personal expense, right? Because the company isn't going to pay for me to actually rent a movie in my room. But you'll notice that your expense policy is at work, flagging the employee that there's a problem with this expense. So here you can see in-room entertainment, $10.58, but I'm not asking to be reimbursed for that expense. I'm going to go to the next one, in-room entertainment, and I'm also going to mark that one off as a personal expense as well. Now, one of the other things that I did too with this hotel stay is I had a number of clients come in and meet me at the hotel, and I paid for dinner. But it wasn't a dinner. That's a pretty expensive dinner. It was just classified incorrectly, so I need to change this to a business meal. For those of you who actually track attendees for business meals, Concur will help automate that entire process. You can also have specific fields that are required, such as business purpose, so we can track that. And then down below here, we can go ahead and add additional attendees to this business meal. Oops. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new attendee. And at this point, we can go ahead and add somebody on the fly. There we go. And also too, if you've already used specific people as part of your business meals, Anybody that you've used, we can check for recently used. We can look for our favorites, so people that you commonly do take out for business luncheons. You can have attendees already set up in Concur, so we can search for them to save you, a ton of time adding those people to this business meal. And you can also set up groups. So maybe if you have a board of directors meeting and it reoccurs once a month, you can create a group called the board and then have everybody already listed as a part of your board there. So all you have to do is select the group and it automatically pulls them in. Otherwise, we'll just continue to add all of the additional attendees for this business meal. For any of you who also, have expenses that need to be coded specifically to projects for costing purposes, or you have expenses that need to be billed back to clients because you're going to charge them for the expense. For any of those, you can do that as well. So if this office supply needed to be coded to a specific client, so I'm going to select client 1. We're going to put in project 1, and that way we can get that, costed to the right cost centers. Hit save. For any of those other expenses that might need to be allocated across multiple departments, we can do that as well. So right here, maybe this airfare needs to be allocated across a few different cost centers or departments. We can go in and do that as well. So at this point, I'm going to come in and we're going to add a new allocation. We're going to allocate this across sales and marketing. Maybe it was like a trade show event, so we can do that as well. And then of course, we can also do the allocation by client, project, whatever your cost centers, are, we can do that. Hit save and hit OK. And there you go. So lastly, let's just say, for example, that I needed to come in and actually, let's add a new expense on the fly. Oops. Sorry about that. So I'm going to add a new expense, and let's just say we're going to add mileage to this expense report before we submit it. So at this point, let's go and grab the mileage. And instead of actually, filling all this information out and trying to calculate your mileage manually, one of the things that Concur is actually going to do is we're going to help you to calculate that mileage. So we have a mileage calculator down here. This is where maybe I'm traveling to the airport and then I'm coming home from the airport. So I'm going to, set it to my home location. We're going to the Minneapolis airport. Oops. Let's see. Well, let's try that again. Well, anyways, from there, if I needed to, we can actually put in a from, a to location, put in the total distance, but typically the mileage calculator calculates that for me, and then it actually applies the expense rate that I have set up in Concur for that. So once we do that, I'm also going to remove one expense here, and let's go ahead and submit the expense report. There we go. So now my expense report has been submitted, and there you can see the status of that expense report. So as it works its way through the expense reporting process, I'll get updated as to the status of my expense report. You can also see here on the invoice side of Concur, more on the live application, here you can see I have unsubmitted invoices that are requiring my approval. We can actually go into the vendor invoice. Down below, we can see the line item detail of this invoice. And if needed, I can actually drill into the invoice as well. We can review the actual image of the invoice. We can go in, we can do further distribution of this invoice, and ultimately we can submit the invoice for approval. When we do that, one of the things that's going to happen in Concur, and let me pull up my mobile app and then I'll be nearly done with the overview. There we go. So here when we log back into Concur, we're going to go into the mobile application. And there you can see I have 2 approvals waiting for my attention. Be able to log into the approvals. Here you can see I have an expense report and an invoice waiting for review. So I can pull up the expense report. I can review an expense report summary. We can view all the receipts associated to this expense report. And we can see the breakdown of every expense that's listed on this expense report, and we can drill into the detail. We can view the itemizations of this hotel stay, and there everything is listed out for you. If everything looks correct with this expense report, we can simply go ahead and hit approve and approve the expense report in the lower right-hand corner. Otherwise, if we needed to go into the vendor invoice, we can open up the vendor invoice. There you can see all the details of that vendor invoice. You can see the actual line item details. We can drill into any of the line items and we can see the distribution. And there you go. If there's any problems with this vendor invoice, you're going to see the exceptions, and there we're going to bring those right to your attention. At this point, I can send it back to the original approver to have it corrected. Otherwise, I can approve it in the lower right-hand corner. All right. So, John, if you want to pull the deck back up.
Just John just passed me the controls, and we have a few more minutes, and then we'll see if there's any questions out there. Sean, that was great. While Sean is tossing the control over us, I think the takeaway for this is, you know, it's a big leap where we started about 50 minutes ago, where we were looking at data that was all separate. Now we're looking at data that's all going to be housed in a centralized location. It's going to be normalized. It's going to be cleansed. So the whole idea behind that is the different functions inside your organizations, they're going to have one view of reality. They're going to have one view of what the numbers are. All the numbers relating to the expense reports, AP invoices, they're going to house within inside of one organization. And also, as far as what Sean was talking about, as far as the integration side, we have a really nice integration with NetSuite, but also, like I stated earlier, with Sage, and also Concur is really agnostic if by chance you use other type of ERP solutions that are not, say, NetSuite or Sage. We also support those as well. But no, whatever you have Oasis solutions there helping you to build that integrations together. If you need a connector build, if you want that bi-directional communications, no, you can lean on Oasis.
Report rich when it comes to slicing and dicing all that spend data. Concur with our consultative intelligence. We offer pre-built and custom dashboards. There's 187 pre-built reports. Also, we give you the opportunity to take any of our standard reports. They could be modified specific to your organization. We can build reports from scratch. We also offer what's called bursting, so that way we can, you know, push out specific reports to specific executives, leaders, you know, in your organization, you know, with automated reporting, so that way they actually don't have to be run. And we also offer dedicated consulting as part of this, where per year you have 60 hours of dedicated consulting to help set up, you know, dashboards, build out custom reports, and so forth. So that's with Concur, we're very report rich, so we can give you that data in any which way that you require it. Just to go through a couple of examples, these are a number of example reports, whether it's expense accruals, whether you're the type of organization that need to see, expense and invoice details being pushed to, project cost centers, customer billables, who are your top 10, exception violators, total expense by month, top 15 expense, types by spend. Here are a number of different, reports in Concur: unsubmitted expenses, expense accruals. For those of you potentially may have, potential fraud. I know that's always a strong word, but we do track that for, any expenses that are being submitted, and it could be potential duplicates and so forth, or you have two employees trying to submit the same receipt. We're going to flag, we're going to catch that type of reporting. There's multiple ways that you can produce any of the reports out of Concur. They can be pushed out via PDF, Excel, HTML. And go ahead, John, in review.
Hey, thank you, John. Just real quick, as far as in review, we'll just spend probably 30 seconds or so as far as what we covered. Just again, what we want to stress is Concur is more than just a single solution. It's really the ecosystem that is being built around Concur itself. Like we said, we have our core solutions, our travel, expense, and AP invoices, but really what's really the strength around Concur is that ecosystem that is being built behind the scenes for you, because we can't do everything, but with our partners such as Oasis and our other third-party partners that are building to the Concur platform, we can help make that travel and AP experience so much better than what you're currently experiencing today. And just know, what we're looking at when you're bringing on a new system such as this, we are looking to re-automate and re-engineer what you're currently doing. The whole idea is the data itself. Can you rely on that data? Can the different organizations that are relying on that data, is it working together so everyone's looking at one truth? And again, we'll go back to taking this total holistic look at spend management. And that total spend includes the T&E. Again, like we stated earlier, it's a small portion of a company's overall spend. But then when you bring in the AP side of it, the AP invoices, especially maybe smaller companies where they may not have a lot of individuals, jumping on planes, booking hotel rooms, but they do have, in all organizations, do have those AP invoices coming in-house. Like Sean was illustrated earlier, what we could do with that and how we could help you manage that inside your organization. So the whole idea behind it is, we believe, you should work smarter, honestly, but not harder. So with that said, we'd like to see if there's any questions out there. If there is, go into your WebEx, there'll be a little chat window. You could raise your hand and we could open the lines. Or if you would like, you could just type in your questions, chat, and we'll answer from there. And with that, Aaron, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, John and Sean. I really appreciate the opportunity to allow our clients and people out there that attended the webinar and that will be viewing it on YouTube more about Concur and all the great efficiencies that can be gained through the product. I do have one question that came through. Was said earlier, Concur is for small to medium-sized businesses as well, which is what we typically specialize in. So can you give us an idea about the pricing model on Concur?
Sure. Sean, you want to address that?
Sure. So to give you an idea, Concur is very much a la carte. So with many of the customers that I work with, especially in Kentucky, the Memphis area, in Tennessee, Typically, most of my customers tend to be small or medium-sized organizations, anywhere between 100 to 500 employees, but then we also work with companies that are 100 or less. So we have a small business team that works with them. So Concur definitely is a la carte. With many of the customers that I work with, they may not have a requirement for travel, but they are looking at automating expense reports and vendor invoices, which is, fine. From the standpoint of expense reporting and just kind of giving you a big picture ballpark, and this varies, of course, depending on every organization I work with and what their requirements are, but per expense report, you can figure it's probably going to be anywhere between, $8 per expense report. We're volume-based pricing, so it's based on the volume of expense reports. So it's anywhere between $8 to maybe up to $12 per expense report, depending on your requirements, depending on some of the optional services that we offer. From the standpoint of vendor invoices, and again, this is volume-based pricing. Vendor invoicing can really range anywhere between $2 to $4 per invoice, depending on the various options that you have available to you for full automation. In either case, it can be a little less than that as well, and it could be potentially a little bit higher. But for the most part, I usually see it somewhere in that range. Hope that answered the question.
Yeah, and I know the feedback that we've gotten from several clients is that there are easy business cases to be made in the value of spending hours and hours of trying to wrangle those receipts and make sure that everything matches, or manually booking travel for individuals within the organization. There's a lot more efficiencies gained, and the ROI there is pretty easily measurable. So appreciate the response, but wanted to make sure that even if you're a small business, like some of the attendees here are, that there's a fit for Concur as well. And we'd love to take that conversation offline. So if you have any interest in following up and getting a more catered demonstration, conversation, discussion about Concur and Oasis and how we can help you leverage these tools to automate efficiencies in your business, please contact me and reach out anytime. Thanks again for the time today, guys. We'll end the webinar here and look forward to helping our customers achieve success with Oasis and Concur.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.